Hello you guys and welcome back to my channel. It's Lynn here, the cosplayer from Seattle, Washington. I'm sorry if my camera is swaying a little bit and making you seasick. It's actually the stand I'm using is really super cheap and it doesn't like to connect to the table very well, but we're gonna make it work today because I'm gonna be talking about a really important topic today. And I'm hoping that you guys are doing okay in quarantine, that you have projects to work on, that you're making like super cool, awesome cosplay costumes, or at least dreaming about future ones or saving up for ones you're gonna buy later on. And hopefully in 2021, we'll have more conventions to go back to. Okay, so today's topic is something that I have wanted to talk about for a really long time. And I finally got my thoughts into order and I have a whole little note sheet of things I'm gonna talk to you guys about. So we are going to discuss today how to keep motivated during a very long cosplay or crafting project. So as most of you guys out there know, when you are stuck in quarantine and you're at home, sometimes the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my gosh, now that I'm stuck at home for 3 months, I can finally work on that project that I wanted to start, but it was just too much work. And I know a lot of people are doing school or work from home, which kind of also gives you the freedom to work on projects throughout the day versus just doing them at the end of the day when you have like very minimal energy. For me, this translated into me making Elderwood Aubrey, which doesn't seem like a very big costume, but because it has so many little pieces, all those little pieces need to have patterns created, to be cut out, to be primed, to be painted. Like there's so much work that goes into every single little piece, which is why I ended up starting it at the start of summer. So now that it is almost the end of August, I am now just finishing up on the last like 10% of the costume and I'm really, really excited to show it to you guys. So with this project, I started kind of coming up with ideas in my head of if I was going to give advice to you guys, what I would really recommend that you do if you're working on a very long project that takes quite a few months to make, or a project that has a lot of little parts or a lot of moving parts, so you're kind of always working on something. So I've broken this list down into my 5 top requests that I'm going to give you guys to do during a long project, and feel free to leave your own comments or ideas below if you have any extra, or if you just want to comment what you think about these ideas. So the first thing we are going to talk about is breaking down projects into actual parts. I find this to be really, really useful if you make to-do lists. So the very first thing I ever do when I am going to make a costume is I typically will make a Pinterest board, and I try to get the splash art, artistic renditions that I really like, different angles of the costume. I save it all into that Pinterest board, and then as I look through that Pinterest board, I will create a sketch of my ideal costume. So what I say by this is I take into account my body type, my height, how I want it to flow when I'm wearing it, how much movement I want, and what type of materials I'm going to be expecting to use, and I make a sketch based on all of that. Let's be realistic here. Many video game characters have costumes that don't translate well into real life, and it takes a cosplayer's brain to really kind of pick apart, okay, what is realistic for me to actually wear in this costume, and how is it going to look in real life when there's not like magical sparkly wind blowing it all over the place? How will I get the same effect? So once I have drawn up that sketch and I have a really good idea of what the entire costume is going to look like when it's put together, the very first thing, like the first recommendation I'm going to give you guys is to break it down into parts. And the way I like to do this is by creating to-do lists. So for each piece of the costume, you'll have a separate to-do list. For Elderwood Aubrey, we have 2 leg bracers, 2 arm bracers, a top, and a bottom. So altogether, we have 6 parts. So with 6 parts, I have 6 to-do lists. It seems like a lot of work, I know, and also like writing it down makes it very real. It's not just like, oh, I'm creating a costume and this is really fun. It's like, oh, I have a lot of steps that I have to follow and things that I have to do in a right order. I know, it seems like a lot, but trust me, in the long run, you will thank yourself that you did this. There will be no missteps. There will be no painting with acrylic on something only to suddenly have that thought of, oh my God, I did not prime this, I totally forgot. Or what I've done before, which is priming something with Plastidip and then having that realization where you go, I forgot to heat shape this. How did that even happen? But that's what happens when you're working with 20 or 40 parts to a costume. You kind of forget the little details. We'll just say that. So by breaking down each part, so the bracers themselves, the two arm bracers, because they look different, they also had two separate to-do lists. Now with each to-do list, what I like to do is whatever I'm working on that week or that day, I'll put it on my fridge, and as I complete things, I'll just cross them off. So I get that satisfaction of also seeing that I am completing work. It's not like I'm a little hamster running on a wheel and I'm like, there's so much to get done and there's no way I can finish it. When you create a list, you are now giving yourself little boxes to check off, and as you check them off, it will feel really, really good and make you feel like you're actually making progress on this giant beast of a costume. Okay, my recommendation number 2 is to have very, very specific ideas in mind when you are having a work day. So what I mean by this is, like, let's say you have a free weekend day, you're going to be home alone, you're like, now is the time that I'm going to work on this costume that I've had taped to my fridge. Be very intentional with how you're using the time that day. So what part of the costume are you working on? How long do you think this will take you? What parts need to be put outside to dry, or you'll have wait times in between acrylic paint, and how do you plan to utilize that drying time? Are you going to be cutting out other parts? Are you going to be, spraying each part and then spraying the next layer and then spraying the next layer? So now you have like 3 layers of things all laid out on your porch to dry that day. If you go into a cosplay craft day, like let's say you wake up at 8 a.m. and you have coffee and you're energetic and you're ready to go, and you go into it with the mindset of, I'm just going to work on my costume today. You will spend most of the time going, wait, what do I have to do again? Wait, where did I leave off on that again? Wait, did I already prime those? Okay, well now I have to go double check, and I have them in a bag and they're in my other room, and that's going to take time for me to dig through. Like, you end up just spending a lot of time catching back up on where you left off. The other thing I like to do is taking my dress form. If I'm going to, like, let's say, so today's Thursday. So if on Saturday this week I want to work on Elderwood Aubrey, I would try to pin to my dress form what I plan on working on. So then that way when I wake up, oh my gosh. As you can see, I'm way too invested in this cosplay project. When I wake up on Saturday morning, whatever is pinned to my dress form is the first thing that I'll notice, and so therefore it's probably the first thing that I'm going to start working on. So there's different ways that you can bring to attention, but just at the end of it, you really want to have kind of a good plan when you go into it. Try not to have a long project become a chaotic mess. Okay, number 3 is probably one of the most important things I want you guys to listen to. If you don't follow any other rule or any other recommendation about doing a long project, please do this. Take lots of breaks. When you are working on a cosplay costume, it is exhausting. You probably don't have the greatest posture, so your like neck, shoulders, back, eyes might get really tired, really sore. Your creative energy will definitely drain over time. So the best thing to do is make sure that after you've had a really intense work day of sewing and spraying primer on foam and sculpting, that you really give yourself those breaks. And this is why I really don't agree with shows like Heroes of Cosplay, because they're kind of showing this huge chaotic mess, and most cosplayers I know do not follow a schedule like that. We create a really good work schedule for ourselves. We do it all in advance. We have plenty of time to prep and prepare and try things on and get the movement down and get the colors right. And with that mindset of doing con crunch, where you're leaving everything to the last minute and then doing it as fast as you can, you're obviously not going to have the best results, because many things, especially like when you are sculpting something, when you are dremeling something, those kind of movements over time, they're using those same tiny muscles in your hands, and it will get sloppier and sloppier the longer you work on it, till at the end point, you're really not doing your best work anymore. So what I really recommend is you give yourself breaks, whether it's breaks throughout the day. So if you are a professional cosplayer or you're planning to make money doing cosplay as a, 9 to 5 type job, you give yourself, a lunch break and a snack break and a go walk around town break, or, go do something else, go play a video game for a while, those kind of breaks. And if you're someone that does it in your free time, just make sure that you're spacing out your projects so that you're not spending, your 3-day weekend working all day long and exhausting yourself. This also gives you a lot of time to think and change your mind. So let's say you go into a project and you're like, I think I'm going to use this material in this color. And you buy the material and you start using it and you're like, okay, you know what? This is not hanging on me quite right. I thought it was gonna be way more flowy. It's not flowy, or it's not stiff enough. I'm not really liking the color after it's layered. It's kind of like not looking what I imagined. When you take lots of breaks, it gives you that time to have peace of mind to change your mind. So if on Monday you're working on something, sometimes it's a good idea to just wait until the next week to decide if you're going to make a change. So instead of sewing that fabric you really aren't liking, give yourself a week to think about it. And then at the end of the week, then decide if you're going to buy a different material or switch it out or do something different with this fabric. It kind of cleanses your creative palette and helps you think a little bit more clearly. It also gives you a lot more time to research and learn. So for me, Elderwood Aubrey was a lot of learning how to work with EVA foam because I have not worked with it pretty much ever before. And I spent a lot of my time watching tutorials on YouTube and looking up online blogs of people that have made similar things and watching what type of magnets do you use in a costume and how much strength do I need and how will I attach this to the foam versus something else and what are the best techniques for this. When you spend a lot of time researching, I kind of consider that to be work time as well. You're going to use your research for future projects, of course, but in the meantime, give yourself breaks so that you have time to research and time to learn. If you're putting yourself in this really, really tiny little con crunch time, a lot of times you're going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I don't really know how to use this material or this tool, but I don't have time to learn it. I just need to go into it. And that's also how you end up ruining materials, which I have done in the past. I have definitely ruined fabric that was expensive because I didn't know how to sew it. And so I just let my sewing machine eat it and then ripping it out and trying to start over again. Oh my God, I'm getting nightmare flashbacks to when I tried to create Jasmine from Disney's Aladdin and sewing a lot of that really, really pretty mesh jeweled fabric in my sewing machine, even though I had never used that type of fabric before. And it just breaking sewing needles and me not understanding, me getting really frustrated. I could have just watched a tutorial online, but I thought I didn't have enough time. So learn from my mistakes. Trust me, learn from my mistakes. Okay, we're gonna go to tip number 4 now. When you are creating a cosplay costume, many people will give themselves a time limit of when it needs to be done. And what I'm about to tell you is really going to challenge that belief because I'm going to recommend don't have an event in mind that you're gonna wear the costume to. Don't tell yourself, I'm making this costume for SoccerCon 2021. And the reason I say this is because it will put you in a state of kind of high alert and anxiety that you have to have that costume done by that time to wear it. And what ends up happening for many cosplayers is, you get a few months into the costume and as things come together, you're kind of like, oh no, it's not really fitting right on me. I'm not really liking how it's looking together. I should have adjusted that part, or I should have bought a different material for the top. You kind of get these thoughts of I should haves. And when you get close and close to that event, you get to the point where you just don't have time to pull everything apart and remake it. So you end up wearing a costume to that event that you really are self-conscious about or not really proud of. And all you'll think about during that event are the things that you wanted to change. It's kind of like cosplay regret. And many people, when they start out doing cosplay, they have costumes that they worked on really, really hard they wear it to the event, and then at the end of the event when they get their pictures back, they're like, okay, I want to change that, I want to change that, I'm going to switch out that material, I need to make that shorter, I need to make that longer. That's pretty normal. But when you're doing a really long project that takes a lot of time, energy, and effort, my recommendation would be don't give yourself time limits or events where you feel pressure you have to wear this costume. If you get to that event and you are not happy with the way it's looking, or you really feel like you need more time to learn these skills, don't be afraid to push it off until the next year or the next event or whenever you get a chance to wear it next. Because the satisfaction of wearing a costume that you feel really, really good about, like it feels secure on your body, it fits you just right, it's the right colors, that satisfaction is way better than kind of like half-assing a costume and just wearing it to the event because you told yourself, well, I'm making it for this event. This is also a really good reason to always have backup cosplay costumes. So if something were to happen, or you get to the end of a project and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna rip my hair out, this is not working, you have a backup outfit to wear. So don't put pressure on yourself. Don't tell yourself this costume is only for this event. There is always going to be more conventions, more events, more online competitions, whatever it may be. And it's better to just wait until you're more confident in that costume and you feel like you've done your best work. Okay, and number 5 on my list is the most fun recommendation, and I find it really, really helps refill my creative cup. So the way that I explain a really long project to cosplayers is the fact that you have a cup, it's full of your creativity and your happiness and your excitement to be this character, and the longer and longer you work on this cosplay costume, you pour your cup into this cosplay costume, and then you gotta find ways to refill that cup, because if you don't, you will get burnout, you will get exhaustion, and you'll kind of start to have thoughts of, you know, this character really isn't that important to me, maybe I'll just give up. Many of us procrastinators, we need things to keep us centered and focused on a project when it takes multiple months to complete. And part of that is keeping us excited about being this character. And so what I'm gonna recommend is that while you're working and in between working, even just like during your average week, make sure that you watch things that inspire you to create. So for me, I watch a lot of cosplay competitions. I love to go see them live, but when I can't see them live, or I wanna see other ones from all around the world, I will go on YouTube and I'll just watch cosplay competitions, old ones, new ones, online ones, which has been pretty new during quarantine. There's been like a lot of like cosplay from home type competitions. And I will just watch. I'll watch judges talk about what they like versus what they didn't like. I'll watch how other people created costumes to get ideas. Part of being a cosplayer is having to get creative with how you're presenting that character. And I have seen so many cosplay competitions where I see a character being presented in a way that I would have never thought of. And I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. Okay, I'm gonna make a mental note. I love how they did that with the fabric. Maybe I won't cosplay the same character as them, but I can use that for other characters that I'm going to create in the future. With cosplay competitions, it also kind of keeps you in that mindset of, I really wanna bring the best of my creative abilities to the table. And it keeps you inspired, it keeps you like fired up, and it reminds you that even though you're at home and you're stuck in quarantine, there are people all over the world right now that are stuck at home as well, and they're working on cosplay costumes. I really truly feel that 2021 is going to be probably some of the coolest cosplay costumes we have ever seen, because people have so much time at home right now and they're filling that time with a lot of like creative learning and testing out things and really pushing their skill levels. You can also watch like anime or your favorite Marvel movies or anything that like inspires your costume. So if you're cosplaying someone from an anime, rewatch that anime while you're working. If you've seen it, like let's say you're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender and you're making a Katara outfit. You don't really need to watch it, but just listening to the show in the background also kind of helps you like stay inspired. And something about having that reference just like right in front of you while you're creating it, I think is very, very helpful. I think our brains remember the color and movements as we're seeing them. And of course, it also creates background noise. So for me, when I'm working on a long project, I really like to listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of cosplay stitch and seam because as I'm creating, I want to hear how other people are creating and their thoughts and opinions and ideas. It keeps me like fired up a little bit. So I'm going to end the list here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you get some good ideas about how to organize your next very long project. I can argue and say that even the smallest project can become the longest, just depending on how much time each week you have to work on it, and also how detailed you want to get. And don't ever feel like what you create, like that's the end of it, like once you've sewn the last piece and it's all good and finished, that's it. You can totally keep embellishing. You can do so much with a costume to make it better and better and better and add things on and make it fit better, make it look better on you. So don't ever feel like you're stuck in a rut. Again, I really recommend watching cosplay competitions online, especially like characters that you're planning to do, so you kind of get the creative juices flowing up there. So anyways, I will see you back here again, guys, for the next video. So keep watching, and I have some really good ideas coming up. Stay safe out there, stay healthy, stay happy is the most important. And of course, stay creative. So I'll see you guys later and have a good day.